Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. How are you all doing? You having a good day? Having a good morning? I am. It's Tuesday. We already have our lobby full of our special guests, so we'll be getting to them right away. And I just want to say thank you to Canada and the rest of my fans all over the world. Number one bestseller Amazon, and number two. Digital's number one, paperback's number two. So thank you all very much for that support. It's amazing. I do appreciate it. You can find that book under my name, Jason Levine, or Bearing Witness on Amazon, and you can get yourself a copy. So thank you all very much for that support. I do appreciate it, because I do believe it's important for people to capture the events properly and legally and make sure you don't get yourself into trouble. I had one person reach out to me, and part of my book says, make sure you stay away from trouble. And they're asking, what is that? What do I do if there's something really bad happening? I said, well, keep reading, because later on in the book, it explains to you how to be a proper bystander, which means you can stay there as long as you can as a witness until there's an event that you have to intervene with. So don't think this book is telling you to just stand there and watch bad things happen. No, when it gets to a certain point, you have to be a good bystander. So anyways, thank you all very much for that. It was a great surprise to see it number one and number two. I appreciate that a lot. Well, today we're going to bring back Zach. So Zach was our gun expert last week. He was going through the table, looking at the stuff, checking out the models. He had a week now to check some more information, and I actually believed he crowdsourced some information. So even people that follow Zach assisted with looking at it at models and stuff like that. So we'll have some good information there. We got Granny and Donald back, and Donald has been very, very successful with an article he wrote. So check out donaldbest.ca or donaldbestca on Twitter to find the article. It's all about our boys here. So it's basically how Donald went from, a good starting point, which is I'm looking at the information. I don't have an opinion yet, and I want to figure this out, to political prisoners, and then how he connected those dots. So check out that article. It's getting a lot of interesting responses. And yeah, thank you all very much for the support for Donald. And then Granny, the Facebook page, it's growing. Get in there. Get in there. If you want to know the latest information, like by far the latest information, you get it from Granny's Facebook page. She is on it. She'll put it up there right away. And if you haven't made plans to be at the Lethbridge Courthouse on July 25th, please do. Make sure you have a nice white top and be there. And then keep checking the Facebook page of Granny, because things can change pretty quickly. July 25th, you stay on top of Granny's Facebook page, you'll know what's going on. And we'll be there. So we'll be broadcasting live at 6 a.m., bright and early. I'll have a coffee, and we'll get the show on the road July 25th at the Lethbridge Courthouse. So I hope you can join us and support the men. Remember, this is not a rally. It's not a protest. It's not a convoy. It's not a parade. Don't need any of that. We're here to show our support and love by being peaceful, supporting each other, and sending love to the men. Nothing more. So if you can make it, that would be wonderful. So on that note, let me bring in Granny, Donald, Zach, and I'll let Danielle finish up, because I can see she's just finishing up. And cap is on, Danielle. Here we go. How are you doing, Danielle? Don't have audio yet.
There we go.
There we go. And you got a good connection today, it looks like.
Yeah, I came into town and my friend Nikki set me up at her computer here. Came in bright and early.
It looks like you're ready to be a podcaster. You got the farm or something in the background. Is that a fence? Are you fenced in, it looks like?
No, yeah, we're in it's Triple T Energy Trucking. So they've got we're just in there.
Oh, I didn't know what you got captured or something. It looked
like
you were.
It's just on the edge of Claire's home too, so we've got a nice, beautiful view out the windows here. It's quite nice.
Oh, welcome, Danielle. So, we can let everybody know who you are, because I didn't tell anybody your name, and I didn't know if we'd be revealing your name or anything yet. So, hey, nice to meet you, Danielle.
Thank you.
And who are you? Are you our mysterious person with information, or what?
I guess so. Yeah. So. I don't know. I seem to have quite a bit of it compiled as to this point. So it's exciting for me to have people to share it with who are as excited about it as I am, and Granny is, and everybody else in the family. It's like we're all pretty excited that we've got people who are interested in it and maybe can help us do something with it. So
absolutely. And I'm sure when you're sitting there taking notes, doing all of that, you were thinking, oh, one day I'm going to be on Canada. I'll be talking to Canada bright and early in the morning. I got to tell them what I'm
No.
doing. No, that wasn't.
Granny can attest to the odd, weird things that we've been doing. I've done in the last year with all of this and the people we've met and the places we've been and some interesting stories. But no, definitely wasn't on my mind. I just think I knew, I've known Tony my whole life, and I was in contact with him throughout Coutts, and I knew this was something was going on, very wrong.
Right.
When he didn't come home and we couldn't find him and all of that went down, we knew something. I knew in my gut. So just something about it is just like a thirst for the truth, I guess, and helping in some way. I didn't really know why I was collecting. It just was. And then it was a lot in my brain and a lot of communication with people and a lot of chats. And eventually it just became like, there's a lot here. And like you guys were talking about yesterday, sometimes you'll have saved something and it means absolutely nothing. And then lo and behold, a year later, something comes up even in the courtroom or something. And it's holy moly. These little connections just start. As soon as that started to happen for me, and we had more support and more people interested in the story, that's when I kind of knew, okay, something needs to kind of come together.
Absolutely.
It definitely was all over the place, and it was a little hard to know where to start. I still don't know where to start when people ask me stuff. So I usually just say, like, maybe just ask me some questions, because then it's just accumulated. As Granny knows, I think she's tried to kind of attempt to kind of go through it a little bit, but yeah, it's just very much snowballed. So,
no problem.
And it's really been interesting to sit in the courtroom for a few weeks. We haven't really had that opportunity. That's another story about the prelims being kind of waived and the direct indictments. But this was the first time that the Crown had to produce anything to the courts in all of this time. They've never once had to have any accountability to the courts on the information that they had on this case against these men. So I think it was a little nerve-wracking going in, because we didn't know which way it was going to go. Things haven't really gone our way at all. So we didn't know if at the end of the 3 weeks we were going to be, tumbled into depression and hopelessness and all of that. But it was nice to come out of those days with hope and more understanding. And for me, it was a lot of unanswered questions from my documents, even if they were just talking about like the different operations that were going on in Coutts and the different teams that were there and the different things like that were going on, the different tasks that were assigned in Coutts. So some of that all kind of fell into place. It was the how and the who was there and who was involved and that kind of way. I think Granny's mentioned before, we have a bit of an accountability list as well, right? Which grows. So that's been important for us too, is to keep track of who's been responsible and who's accountable and what levels and who they were in communication with. And for the purpose, I wasn't even sure. Like there was really no motive or agenda when things started to get collected. Down the road, I think things are a little bit more clear on that. I think for me, it's more like history's sake as well. I've definitely gotten a new passion for the law and how all of that works. And that was something that I kind of got an education on. And definitely for me, it's a lot of for history's sake as well. Like if we don't keep track and document and everything, even 10 years down the road, we have nothing, right? So it's just important for that purpose as well, and for the accountability at the end of the day. Oh, I'm getting dirt out. Maybe we'll leave that one open. Yeah, thanks. I look like a green.
If you don't mind, we'll move to Granny now at this moment. So what you said there was awesome, and I think Big Granny, maybe there's a calling here. She wasn't sure why she was doing it, but she had some feelings. She had this reason. She kind of felt like there was a purpose. That sounds to me like a bit of a calling. What do you think, Granny?
Yes, we call her our private investigator. Anything we ever want to know, we just go to Danielle because, and again, it's all in here. And I remember one day she was very overwhelmed and she said she had stuff everywhere. And I can imagine, because I know what my world's like, and her world is a lot bigger when it comes to this. And she literally, at the hours she spent on this, like sitting down, and I think we can all relate with this. She had it in books. She had it wrote here. She'd hear something. And then she sat down like for one day, like all day, and tried to get it into a file. And as Donald says, there's a way. And now she's excited learning how to do that. And as I said to Jason, I said, oh my gosh, Danielle needs your book. Like, she really, really is passionate about it. Yes, it's about a very close friend of hers. So yes, she's passionate on that level, but she's actually intrigued by it all. And so I think when the interest is there, it's a passion for her now, which is even better.
Absolutely. And Donald, I think we have a little apprentice here in the making, somebody who wants to learn the right way to do it. So you start with my book, but I also think she needs a mentor. What do you think there, Donald? Can you mentor somebody into evidence gathering and cataloging?
All my years. And, you know, it was a happy time for me when I get some rookie. As a matter of fact, I had a rookie one time. They gave him to me and they said, we're going to fire him. If you don't do something with him, we're going to fire him. And, you know, he just retired with the rank of superintendent. So I guess I did a good job.
Well done, Donald.
That's it. But listen, I want to get some very serious things here. Your book is #1 in Canada, #1 on Amazon. That's fabulous. But
thank you.
Look, we've been working on something here for a long time. You know, the AI field, artificial intelligence. We have finally come up with some artificial intelligence to equal Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. We have him duplicated. Absolutely. And this morning, we're going to show it to the world.
What you got for us? Is it the
There
pancake clip? That's bang on. That's bang on.
There it is. We have duplicated our Prime Minister in this artificial intelligence machine right here. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it sounds like, I'll translate. It
There
says, he says, I feel threatened. I think that's what he just said there. Yeah. So I'll translate baby to human here. Thank you very much, Donald, for that. It was awesome.
Okay.
Moving to Danielle, though, you think she has some potential here? Do you think she could be quite the sleuth, quite the investigator?
Well, we'll see if she retires as a superintendent later on. But yes, I think she does. And, you know, your book, look, sorry to keep coming back to
it's
the book.
okay.
I'm not plugging it.
You paid for a copy too.
I did. I'm very insulted about that. I expected, you know, to have to have it arrive in the mail, but apparently not. I had to pay for it. That's fabulous. I bought it about 5 minutes after it hit the press. So I'll tell you, your book is absolutely the first thing that I send anybody to before we start with anything now. As you know, I have hundreds of people a year who are self-represented litigants who come to me for advice and or assistance. And I'm not a lawyer, but I've been there. And there's also some great groups out there, the National Self-Represented Litigant Project out of University of Waterloo, or Windsor Law School, rather. And there's some other people out in British Columbia. I mean, there's resources if you'll just reach out. But you know what? That book, #1. So Danielle, I want you to get that book and I want you to read it. That's your #1 job before you do anything else.
Jason, I think Jason sent me a digital copy last night, so I can get on that.
Wait a minute. Did you have to pay for that?
Yeah.
She gave us the data, so we did it barter. We're bartering in Alberta.
With my sweat and blood and
Jason, you're in trouble. This is going to cost you a steak. It really is. All right.
A steak. I'll give you a steak and a beer.
Danielle, yes, you can do it. You've already shown that. The stuff you've got, excellent, just wonderful. but we're going to make it useful. And this is something that all Canadians now must engage in because, well, the news media isn't giving us the truth. So we have to document it ourselves.
And I trust that one a lot better, to be honest with you. As I'm thinking about this more, I'm really excited about citizen journalism really taking hold, because we don't need an editor. We don't need someone to change the narrative. We don't need someone to tell us what to go look at. We'll just follow our instincts, and we'll follow the evidence. So I'm really excited that this is going to be a thing. This might be the new way Canada does this. And I like it because that makes the other side very, very nervous, because who do they shut down? Who do they silence? It could come from anywhere. So
Look
I
at
really
what we've
like that.
already done. Look at what we've already done. Danielle's already done. Looking at what the little bit that we've been able to see in public and analyze that and compare it with some other things, and there are conflicts even in what we see in the public record, and that's all very, very useful because we want the truth. Wherever that leads us, we want the truth. And right now, we know that the other side has a political agenda. It impacted the not giving the men bail. It impacted the investigation. It impacted how they handled the exhibits and how they mishandled the exhibits. And you can read my article about that at donaldbest.ca. But that prosecution is politically driven. And that will be their downfall when citizens like Danielle start looking at the evidence and doing it in a professional way that is useful in court. And that's what we're going to do for this case and a lot of other cases. I think that Danielle's work will inspire many people, not only in this case, but in so many other important cases that are very important for Canadians.
Absolutely. And Danielle might become a verb. You've been Danielled, which means properly recorded and reported. It's not a Karen thing. You've been Danielled. We're here to watch what you're doing. So maybe she'll become a verb. And what's also exciting about people like Danielle is also people like Zach, who are citizen experts. They're basically experts or enthusiasts, and they have some skills and some understanding a little bit beyond the average person. So not only do we have journalism and reporting going on, we also have some expert-ish. Like, I don't think he calls himself an expert, but he calls himself an enthusiast. So we have access to people who know a little bit more, which is exciting because we have the same ability to talk to them unfiltered. And actually, what I really like about this is they can come back, so they can review their own work, dot some I's, cross some T's, and come back. So I'm going to bring Zach on and ask him basically what you've been doing for the last week. And is this something that you enjoy doing now? Is this something that you want to spend some time on? Maybe not full time, but some time on getting involved in cases and doing some investigations.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, the gun side is just something that I am very interested in. And like you said, I wouldn't call myself an expert or definitely an enthusiast. But if you're involved in the gun community in any sort of fashion, it's almost like you have to become an expert just because of the way that you're going to be railroaded. You don't know if your guns are going to become illegal the next day. So there's lots of little elements to it. It's a big responsibility in Canada being a gun owner. You're also villainized just for being a gun owner. So you're always kind of playing defense here and trying to figure out, what the next thing that the government's going to come down to try to take your properties. So over the last week, though, I've been kind of reaching out to friends of mine, seeing if they have any input. I shared the episode with some people, and I had very positive feedback. And one guy who's a big gun owner, I don't even know how big his collection would be. It'd be huge. He was very complimentary on what we were doing because he realizes that this isn't just a problem for the four men in Coutts. This is a problem for all gun owners.
Right.
If these four men can be railroaded the way that they are, it really opens it up for pretty much anybody. You get on some trumped up charges that basically they can kind of accuse you of anything under the whole mischief and keep you locked up for 500 days without a fair trial. So I think that was kind of an eye opener to him, is it could be me in the same situation. So I think that that's a kind of a big thing. that was going on. So I was reaching out to some people saying, hey, do you know any of these things that are on the table here? Can you provide any type of insight? I got some good feedback as far as just a different eye looking at the same thing, being able to provide some answers. So I kind of compiled a little list and have a little bit more information on some of the guns. And in talking with some people too, I cited the diagolon patches as something that I thought would have been planted evidence, and in fact, I was incorrect on that. That was actually I don't know whose vest that is with the patches on there, but those were owned by that person. It wasn't planted evidence,
Right.
But there was kind of one gun in concern that looked like it could have been planted, and there's also brought to my attention that there's some other guns that were seized that aren't actually on the table as well from some of the not the 4 that were arrested, but the extended family that were arrested in this whole situation too. So,
Well, actually, there's 2 from an arrested one not there.
there's
There'll be
2,
Jerry's
yeah,
guns. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, that is also just kind of odd to kind of muddy the mix in it all too. So, but no, it was a good week of kind of collecting evidence. I don't know if I'm exactly fit for it, but it's been a fun process, kind of doing my homework in the way that I've been doing over the last week here.
For sure, and I kind of asked you to take a look into it, so you didn't really have this initiative on your own to dig into it. I came to you and asked you, and then you did. And that's kinda a little bit different than with Danielle. So Danielle took it upon herself. So nobody asked her to go record this stuff. She took it upon herself, which kinda makes the dynamic a little different because there's a passion for her, and then you were responding to a request. By the way, you did a great job. We even had Tracy Wilson, she reviewed your episode. I think a couple minor little, issues on the models, but other than that, it was a pretty good review. And she did say she will come on the show if we can collect the charges around the guns, specifically what those charges are, and any evidence that's been collected around those gun part. She may be able to assist with defending that stuff. That's what this CCFR is for as well. So, as part of our sleuthing, Zach, if I can ask you, if there's anything that you think Tracy would like to see, and we can kind of put it into a little bit of a package, and we'll work on finding out the charges maybe through the lawyers or through the courts, so we can package the gun portion of this to Tracy, because any attention from her on it might be helpful, and any defense from her team on it might be helpful, because frankly that might be the only real charges here that something related to storage or transportation.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll kind of go into that once I kind of pull up the table again. I have some comments on that, but I think from Tracy's perspective, and Donald might know a little bit more of how to access this, would be actually getting the list of the firearms and what the specific charges related to those firearms are. I don't know how to go about doing that with the RCMP. Some type of freedom information request, I would assume, or if there's court documents or anything
Or
like that.
Jacqueline. So Jacqueline just commented, and she says she knows. So we may just work with Jacqueline or someone like Jacqueline for all of the charges. But Jacqueline, if you want to pass any info that you have on the actual charges, we'll pass that on to the
Yeah, I think
CCFR.
that would be a huge help. I mean, even what she said right there, possession of a weapon for what was that? Dangerous purposes.
dangerous
That's
purpose.
so, I mean, that's so arbitrary. A dangerous purpose could be hunting an animal, right? It's dangerous for the
Well, for the
animal.
animal, yeah.
And you're also subjecting yourself to, if you're out in the bush, that you're also putting yourself in a dangerous situation. So that's so arbitrary to say if that's all that they're kind of going on. But I did want to mention too, it kind of popped into my head when Donald was talking earlier, is that through this whole process and why they're being kind of kept in lockdown in the way that they are, is because I'm wondering if this would have a huge connection if this completely gets overturned, these 4 guys sue the government, and then it kind of comes in part and parcel with the Emergencies Act as well. Reversing that, like, this could snowball into something very, very ugly for the government. And I think that is also kind of playing a part in it too, is they really do not want the information, or like this case, to be a higher profile, and it could just be very, very bad for the government. So it's no surprise that that's what's going on.
Oh, I'm going to tell you right now, this is the base of their house of cards, 100%. This is the piece that they built it all on, because during the POEC, this was really the only part that was in camera, which was a national security threat around the Coutts stuff. That's everything else came out, even the stuff with the border and things like that. But the threat from the Coutts guys is the stuff that was in camera. We never got to see that testimony. And that was enough for Rouleau's to say, okay, well, that's serious and that's real. And then the house of cards were built on top of that. So you're absolutely right, Zach. If that one comes out and it turns out to be phony the entire time, I think you're going to see Alberta get really upset over it. That should be one part of it, because Alberta kind of defended the government on that. And what is the justification at that point? The bridges were open. There was a lane open. Stuff was getting through on the border crossing, so that's not the issue. Nobody was attacking the hill or actually putting anybody in any danger. So Ottawa's not the issue for the EA. It has to be the guns. And if that turns out to be not even dangerous weapons, and those aren't even theirs or something like that, I don't know how this would pan out, because we do have a prime minister who has the most scandals than any other prime minister, and it doesn't seem to do much. But for us who know the truth and are following this, it would mean everything. I'm curious. Would it take down Rouleau's report because it's based off of inaccurate information? I don't know. Donald, maybe you can touch on that, and then I'm going to go to Danielle a little bit here. But what do you think would happen if the news came out via us or other channels that, yeah, sure enough, the guns were not illegal and there was nothing here and the men are free? Do you think that domino would tip over, or do you think they've got it glued to the table and it's not going to move? Donald, you're muted, bud. Yep. You're building suspense.
There we go. First of all, the government inquiry was totally rigged. Okay, come on, friend of a friend helping a friend. That's. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, hear you fine.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Friend of a friend.
Okay. Yeah. So totally rigged. But what I've always said is that in the denying the bail to these men in a country that lets cop killers out on bail with an ankle bracelet, there was a purpose to that. It was intended to achieve three purposes. One, to act as public evidence that these accused were so dangerous that it justified the use of the Emergencies Act. That's why we had that staged propaganda photograph of all those weapons on the table. That wasn't about evidence. That wasn't done because of evidence or to achieve evidence. It was a propaganda photo. Everybody can see that. Read my article. You get the big story on that. So that was number one, why they were denied bail, as a public show that these men are very dangerous. Number two, to influence the potential jury members. My gosh, these guys are still in custody 2.5 years later, and now I'm a member of the jury. Wow, they must be bad people. And that helps them achieve a conviction. It does. There's no doubt about it. And three, they kept them in jail to deter all other Canadians, just like they seized bank accounts and destroyed businesses and families. Just to let you know, if you're going to take on the Liberal government in this country of Canada, we're going to hurt your family. That's why they're in jail. And yes, they're keeping them there, and they're going to desperately try to achieve a conviction on those weapons, because if they don't, well, the whole thing falls apart. Will that mean anything?
Yeah, I don't know if they'll let it fall apart and whether or not we'll get reported on it and then people will take action. I don't know.
That's right. I mean, people, first of all, Canadians don't know these men are still in jail. They don't. I didn't know. Oh, half the audience never knew, or probably more. You didn't know. Yep. It was a big surprise. And we just believe, I mean, they must be bad if they're keeping them in jail, right?
Well, that's the question. If it turns out they're not bad because they're released and the judge says, throw this out, like, let's pretend that happened. The judge said, this is bogus. There wasn't anything here. Let's say that news happens. Will Canada be mad enough? They weren't mad about they weren't mad about any other scandal.
Well, frankly, I think it depends upon what new baseball hero is on television. And that sounds very facetious, but it's not. Look how they manipulate us. Oh, there's this story that's important. There's that story that's important. Oh my goodness, Russia, China. Wait a minute. They're giving billions and billions and billions of dollars away, and that loaf of bread has tripled in the last 18 months, and people are losing their homes.
So you're saying they're
And
distracted beyond they won't notice.
yeah, Tim Hortons is buying apartment buildings to house workers that are coming in here that do exactly what they're told. Why?
Okay.
Because they want that permanent ticket. I mean, can you imagine that fast food chains are buying apartment buildings to replace Canadians as their workers?
Mm.
No one cares about that. Half the people that have heard me say that right now, they're going, what? Well,
Didn't
get
know.
on Google and find out. Yeah. So all I can say is, if you're paying attention, a lot of people are waking up.
Mm.
This case is but an example of 1,000 cases where politics have corrupted the justice system. And I'm very, very concerned about our justice system. That's a bigger story, but this is an example of it. We have the police and the justice system acting politically.
Now, I'm going to ask Danielle about that because so Danielle was in court. I think it was the 29th, April or June 29th. Is that right, Danielle? So June 29th was the last court date. It was supposed to be June 12th and June 29th. Is that right?
I don't even know what day it is today. I think so.
Well, today's the 11th, but I think it was the 20. Yeah, I think it was yeah, it was Thursday the 29th when you were in, and then we kind of got some of the news on Friday. Then Granny told us more about it on Monday. So you were in there when something weird was happening. This wasn't about the men. This is what we know. Something odd was happening. So you were sitting there during all of this, taking your notes. And from your perspective, did it look like they were talking about criminal law, or did something politically? Did you think, like Donald's right here, where something political may have been going on, or exposed at least?
I think so. There's obviously some solicitor-client privilege being claimed between the Crown and the RCMP with that information. So everything's been
Whoa, I haven't heard that one.
So
okay, that's good.
Yeah, my friend's lawyer Tony, she's Tony as well, so we'll refer to her as that. So she's the one doing this application, and she's trying to do everything by the books when it comes to the solicitor-client privilege. They're trying to get that all sorted out so that things can go public, but that application did get submitted last week, she said. So kind of late last week it was submitted, so the Crown should kind of know what's in it now. He was unable to attend because, how did she put it? So she's trying to tell the judge.
He may have a new label which excludes him from being there.
Well, that's what she's trying to tell the judge without telling anybody what's actually in the content. So she's desperately trying to tell the judge like how important this is.
So what words did she use to describe?
She used the word, well, because the Crown kept talking about the solicitor-client privilege, she kind of stopped them finally and said, listen, this might not be the case. There is evidence of unlawful activity. And we're talking about this disclosure that has been discovered, right? So there's a conflict with this disclosure that has just been kind of dumped on them. They've thrown around the words inadvertent disclosure. So I don't believe they were supposed to have found it. I think she kind of found it and was excited to found it. And then it kind of, everybody got a lot more excited after the content of that was more apparent to them. So again, we're not privy to what's actually in that, but the words.
This is helping me. These words are helping me. You
conflict of disclosure. And then coming back to kind of when it was first discovered, the Crown mentioned that due to the content, the disclosure conflict is not only about the disclosure, it is also in regards to two of the Crown prosecutors. So this is where they kind of started off talking about, there's rumors that the Crown prosecutors have been canned or had to leave. Well, they didn't.
That's a rumor.
On the case, they're just not allowed to, well, I'm going to say they're on the defense now. Because this application coming up, they're actually going to be witnesses. They're going to have to be put on the other end of it. So they're not allowed to
Be present.
stand for that hearing. They're going to be a part of the hearing. They're desperately on the Thursday they had another Crown and desperately trying to say, oh, can we please have the information ahead of time so that I can get caught up? And we only have a month. There's no way. And luckily, there was no sympathy there. I mean, that's literally happened to these men, 15, 16 times over the last year.
So the Crown was asking
a very big pile of.
So the Crown was asking for more time to review this sudden
The Crown
piece of
didn't
information.
have the information yet. The Crown didn't even know what was in the application yet. The Crown just found out late last week what was even in it. So he's sweating bullets just wanting to know. He's not sleeping at night, I think. So that's a good thing. But
Right. But you said some interesting things. I used certain words. So inadvertent disclosure. So what that usually means is they meant to send the attachment, but not the email that said, hey, we made this thing up. So that would be an inadvertent disclosure.
Well, the application itself was for disclosure. So it was during an application disclosure and during a cross-examination of one of the witnesses who there were notes, there was scribbled notes in one book and there were scribbled notes in another book from the scribes that were hired for this this person. And there was also another scribe that had been hired who had predominantly done typed notes. So from what I gather, it was discovered that the typed notes were never submitted to the defense counsel.
Okay.
However, the witness, testified, I've given the Crown everything that I have, blah, blah, blah. So when that was discovered that there was this gigantic pile of typed notes only that had never been exposed before. So that was just, I think, exciting on the defense counsel. Ooh, we caught them, not producing stuff. And then I think it kind of snowballed from whatever was in that. I don't want to get too much into
right, but that wouldn't be enough
or anything for obvious reasons, but
that wouldn't be enough to cause this problem that you're talking about, because they would have a chance to disclose that. There may be more nefarious.
Yeah, so I think it has to do with more the content in there.
This is what I'm thinking. The scribbled version maybe doesn't match the typed version.
It's not. They're all different notes. So scribbled notes by one scribe, a totally different situation, scribbled notes. So the set of notes that were typed are not the typed out scribe notes. They're a completely different set of notes.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
I didn't suggest that. They're two different people, one scribed, one typed. And I'm wondering if the content of those two are vastly different. And one of them was not good for the defense. And that's the one they submitted. And one was good, exculpatory evidence, and wasn't provided.
My question is, were one set of notes deliberately modified?
That's what I'm getting at.
Illuminate to it. I mean, and if they did that, oh my
gosh. Now we're
gosh.
speculating.
It was suggested.
I know. Look, we're speculating, but I can tell you that, as I said, tunnel vision. When they deliberately select only the evidence that meets their vision of the case, and they deliberately leave out evidence that shows innocence. I mean, in the States, they've executed all kinds of people because police officers and Crowns or prosecutors down there did exactly that. And that's a big deal. So that, if it was deliberate and the Crown knew, we'll see.
Yeah. So this is good.
All speculation.
For sure. Yeah, we are speculating on this. And
we heard the words gross misconduct thrown around kind of at the end when the Crown was trying to get a hold of the CC1 information before it had been submitted, and the judge was like, well, agreed with the defense counsel, like, no, you're a potential witness. There's gross misconduct being accused. You don't get to see the information before you're not above the law, kind of thing. You don't get to see that before it's even submitted to the judge. So one thing I'm going to say is that we're really happy with the judge. I think Granny can attest. Like we're not very trusting people with things right now. We weren't that way before, but it took a lot for us to kind of sit in court and get a feel for the judge and kind of which ways he was going. And he made certain comments that I really, truly believe that he understood. Certain things that were not okay and certain things that were not normal, and he was pointing out, right? Like the fact that most of the ITOs are just repeats of the beginning ITOs. Like he brings that
What's
up.
an ITO?
Well, like the information to obtain for the warrants.
Information to obtain.
So there's 10 of them in total, right? They've just dumped them on all year long. It's, well, we need this more information. And then those things are being released to the press. So that was a big issue, I think, when we did the publication ban application in the beginning was, you know, we're obviously trying to keep the jury as less biased as possible. But the problem was when the press was given information, it was from these ITOs. So an ITO, one of the lawyers tried to explain this to the judge, says, these things are just sales pitches to a judge.
Correct.
From the Crown to get what they want. There's been no cross-examination. There's been no proof of evidence. There's been none of that. It's literally just here's my application. Please give me what I want, judge. And the judge will decide and sign off. So what you see in the media is literally the information from ITOs, right? So it isn't evidence. It isn't even evidence at this point, right? So that's, I think, something that was brought up in court and that the judge agreed with, that's definitely an issue, right? That these things
let me talk on those.
Necessarily benign or proof of anything. So that's been a big struggle with the media. They've easily gotten a hold of the sound bites from those ITOs and gone to town. So
well, let me highlight
on the same hand, there's enough information in the ITOs that you could literally write. They'd look like a hero if you wanted them to, right? So there's a lot of picking and choosing and cherry picking going on with all of that with the media. So
okay. So the ITOs, I think this could be the root of the problem for the Crown, because the ITOs have to be sworn to. Okay, so yes, they can write whatever they want. Yes, they can say whatever they want, but they do have to be sworn to. They're like an affidavit. So basically, the Crown is saying, hey, I believe this to be true, judge. Then the judge will act on it based on that assumption that the Crown wouldn't put forward something that's not true. That's just like an affidavit, and those are the kind of things that can initiate criminal investigation, gross misconduct investigation, and having the Law Society involved in any capacity. That would be an action that would have triggered all of those kind of reactions, because that is the root of everything: the warrant, the search, the jail, everything. These ITOs. And if any of them are fabricated or the information in there turned out to be completely wrong, not just a mistake, but it's sworn to. So it would have to be written in a way that says, I am the Crown that says I looked at this information, spoke to these people, and I believe that this is valid. If that's all fake and completely never even happened, that's perjury. That's a criminal code offense. That could trigger something. That I'm not saying it is, but that is the domino that put them into jail without bail. So if any of those, even half of it, was fabricated, that would be a major problem.
Yeah, and it was interesting too. The ITO, the original ITOs, the ones that were done in Coutts, were actually affidavit by somebody from like Inset. So originally, those little things always made me curious. I'm like, why is this national security team, like, why is this guy hanging around ready to sign affidavits in Coutts? It didn't really add up. So that's, I guess, where I mean sitting in court and understanding why he was there and how that connection was made. I found it quite interesting too with the publication ban. And without saying too much, the judge did mention, I don't know if you remember this, Granny, but you know, as he's giving off the paragraphs to be redacted from, say, ITO number 5, he uses the comment, investigator comment. So he adds in investigator comment to a lot of the different paragraphs. And then he clarified at the end, he says, normally, I know you might be a little confused, but normally I don't include investigator comments. And what he's talking about, I kind of later learn, is the man that did the affidavit for the ITOs. Investigator comments, he says, are typically supposed to be benign in court. And he says, I've deemed these not to be benign. And there was a lot of them.
Okay.
So I kind of took that, and I knew what the topic was. I won't maybe say too much on that, but it was something that I've advocated for a while, that these affidavits look a little funny as far as what they're assuming the guys were talking about. I will say they pretty much assume they're talking in code the entire time.
Yeah, and
So
I
this
think
doesn't mean that. This doesn't mean that. I don't think that guitar means that. I don't think, you know, all these words don't actually mean what they're saying. So I
no,
don't know
no,
what normal law looks like. I don't know what a normal affidavit looks like and what these normal evaluations of these ITOs would normally look like. So those things always kind of stuck out weird to me. And then, so I think when the judge did kind of reiterate that these specific investigator comments are not to be included, they're supposed to be benign. These weren't benign comments. So I think there might be some weight with that.
yeah, and there's very few this is a procedure, it's administrative. A lot of this is rules based. There's very few things that will trigger criminal talk, like gross misconduct. There's very few things that trigger that. Affidavits is certainly one of them. Perjury is another one. And coming from the Crown, it's usually based on the affidavits that they give for search warrants or other stuff. Because there's not many other things where the Crown has to sign their name to it under penalty of perjury or a penalty of law. But affidavits are certainly one of them. That's what the purpose is to give a punishment for lying. And that might be what we're seeing here. Still speculation. I'm going to go to Granny quickly here. So Granny, Danielle said something that was interesting about the judge and basically the words and the tone and way it seems to be leaning. Did you get the impression, and I'm just going with oppression and your feelings with the judge, that maybe he was biased a bit, and is that needle swinging, or did he seem to be pretty much in the middle and might be swinging towards the men, or there's no needle swinging at all here? What's your impression of what's going on?
He was he scolded people like the Crown or the defense if they said something. He was equal that way. You know, the Crown didn't have free play on what they said or what they did, so that was nice to see. He gave a compliment, and he scolded. But what was really nice is he gave the four men a human touch. He spoke of them as people. He spoke of them. They've spent a lot of time where they're at. Have you talked to the defendants about this? Like, he gave them a human touch, like they were people, not just subjects in a room. So that was really nice to feel that and to see that, because they are four humans. They are four flesh and blood men. And so that was nice to see the judge even recognize them. So I felt good with him. So.
Oh, that's good. That's good, because maybe at the beginning he had the bias of these were horrible people. And like Donald said at the beginning when he started this, like, if they did this, let them rot in there, like have a very disconnected opinion of them. For the judge to, okay, I'm at least dealing with humans here, and we should make sure that their rights are addressed here. That's a good sign. And I would like to hope that all judges act that way all the time, but I know that's not the case at all. So thank you for that there, Granny. Now, Zach, I'm going to turn to you, and maybe we can pull that photo up and take another look. There it is. Cool. So I'll bring it onto the screen. And if you can give us an update on what you learned over the last week, that would be cool. Oh, you got numbers on there now.
Yeah, I numbered them just for ease of going through it. So first thing I did want to say, though, is that I feel that it's one of those old kind of things from the Soviet Union. You show me the man, I'll show you the crime, is what's going on here. So Danielle, I noticed you put in the private chat that there's, let me scroll up here. One of the charges was a prohibited loaded weapon. On the table, do you know which one it is? Is it number 8?
I don't see 8. I don't really know. No, it would be a handgun, I believe.
It was a handgun? Okay, so it'd be one of these.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that sounds, maybe it was improper storage is what they're trying to pin on him.
There was no, yeah, maybe.
Because
I got the charge sheet. It just says possession of a prohibited loaded weapon is all it says.
Right. So those two would be prohib, and then 8 would be prohib. Okay. So I just wanted to go through this quickly. So starting with number 1, I couldn't find what this one is. I think it's Marlin. So this would be, it's a lever action, non-restricted, and it would be capacity of 5 rounds on that. Number 2, a friend of mine said that this is a Norinco Type 97. This would be a non-restricted, shoots 5.56 NATO. So I actually got a couple. So I only have a casing. If you can pull me up full screen for a second here, Jason.
Sure thing.
I have a casing. So this would be a 5.56. It's just the casing. So there's no bullet in there. This is what lots of these guns would actually shoot. So this little guy right here, this is a 30-06.
Oh wow.
So in size comparison, they're quite different, right? So lots of the black scary guns that Trudeau wants to ban will shoot something like this, and then your hunting rifles will shoot around like this. So I just wanted to highlight that. Anyway, so number 2 is Norinco Type 97. I would shoot the 5.56 that little casing that I hold up. Semi-automatic, and it would shoot capacity would be 5 rounds. Again,
so
like
non-restricted and illegal. Yeah.
Non-restricted, yeah. So these don't have if it's non-restricted, it doesn't have to be registered with the government. It wouldn't be subject to additional laws and regulations there. Number 3 was another one. I don't know what it is. It would be a bolt action, typical hunting rifle, right? It might shoot 30-06, like I kind of mentioned, or something different. Number 4. It's an M1911, so this is a restricted gun. It shoots 45 ACP, semi-automatic, and it would be the magazine capacity would be 10 rounds.
Now,
Number
to be clear
5,
for people listening, unrestricted doesn't mean illegal, or restricted doesn't mean illegal. It just means there's restrictions to owning it.
Correct. Yeah, it's subject to different laws and regulations. Same thing with number 5. Number 5 is a Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0. It's restricted. It shoots 9mm. So 9mm is this little guy right here.
Okay.
Shoots 9mm, semi-automatic. It would be 10-round capacity. So number 6, this is a Gen 1 Kodiak Defense WK-180. This would be non-restricted. And like I said last time, is they have these they have guns that to try to get not around the legislation, but operate within the legislation to be non-restricted, but share certain components such as like the furniture, the grips and stuff like that of the AR platform. And this would be one of them.
And that's what the liberals are calling loopholes, but conservatives are calling within the regulation.
Correct. Yes, exactly. So this would be, it would shoot 5.56, semi-automatic. It would have a magazine capacity of 5 rounds. Number 7, I had correctly identified this one last week. So this is a Chris Vector, shoots 9mm, semi-automatic. Capacity would be 5 rounds. Number 8. So this is one that is a little bit of concern. So this one I think would actually be an AR-15. So this one would be prohibited during the OIC. So that was why I asked Danielle if this would have been one of the ones that would have had that extra charges on. Because if this isn't stored in the safe, then it's because it was part of the OIC, then this would be highly illegal. Just with the OIC that Justin Trudeau put in place. So that one is kind of concern. Not that it's illegal to have, not that it's illegal to store or anything like that. It just falls under the OIC. It is it used to be a restricted firearm, but now it's on the prohib list because of the OIC. This one, someone had messaged me that this is looks very similar to what would be actually issued by the RCMP. So this one's up for question, and I'm not going to make any assumptions or accusations of where this actually came from. But if it was properly
number 8
stored,
has your attention now, though.
Yes, this one would be the one that I mean, apart from the magazines as well, because those look like they're over capacity for sure. This would be maybe the only other thing that could be, in my opinion, something that would be illegal here. So that one, number 8's up for question here.
And I just want to highlight here, we don't know who's here. So we don't know. No, they haven't released that information. Number 8 belonged to blah. But we did receive a tip that number 8 could also belong to someone else, didn't we?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So that has a big question mark. We don't know the owner of it, the origin of it. But we do know that it's prohibited. It's under the prohibited list.
Yes. And so that's where like you had mentioned, Tracy Wilson, is if we can get some of this information from whatever source and get accurate a list where these came from, blah, 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 that would be a huge help. I'm trying to do my best of what I can with the limited information.
Let me ask Danielle if that information has been released, and that's something we can collect over the next week or so. So Danielle, do you know if there's any information on who's on here?
Not with the who's is what. No, there's a lot. There's other people arrested too. So we're not. That information hasn't been very apparent to us about that. There was an article I think last end of last February, not this past February, but February 2022, where I think it's in the documents there. We can kind of go over that maybe later. They had some, was it Western Standard, I believe, was going after the RCMP and trying to get a more broken down list of the weapons that had been found. And I think it was something like February 25th before they got a response. And there's an actual apology from the RCMP in that statement. Oh, sorry, yeah, we didn't quite get on it right away. There was people on holidays.
Right.
Plus the statement that they had kind of given, they apologized for it being confusing and all of that to the Western Standard. So that's kind of the only, everything kind of just went quiet after that as far as the guns or anything.
Okay.
And the questions,
Well, let me ask you to do this. Collect what you can around the guns for next week, and we'll get it to Zach and maybe to Tracy as well, depending on what you collect. So anything to do with charges, requests for information, like you're talking about here, anything to do with this table, this photo, can you try and work with Donald, and we'll collect that information for Zach?
I do know that the only charges that have been laid, even with the other people arrested, are just weapons of a dangerous purpose. So I believe outside of that one prohibited loaded firearm, there isn't any other firearm act charges.
And is this
They
one
are
charge
all
of one person?
weapon of a dangerous purpose charges. Yeah.
Okay, but who's the charge on? All of them? They each
All
have
of
that
them.
charge?
Every single one of those
So
people.
one handgun can be charged
13.
on 4 people?
There's 13 people, right, that were arrested that night. So they're all have one charge of the weapon of a dangerous purpose. All of them.
All right. So for the first time in history, 4 people carried one gun. Good to know. Okay, Zach. So with that information, she will be collecting what she can over the next little bit, and it looks very sparse and very stretched, these charges. This might help Tracy. So continue if you don't mind.
And I do have a little spreadsheet open, as I find information about them. I've been throwing it in the spreadsheet. So Danielle, you can email me schmidthousepodcast@gmail.com if you have
I'll
any
set up
information
everybody
about-
with emails.
Yeah.
I'll share everybody's emails. Yeah.
That'll be perfect. So just quickly ripping through the list. Number 9 was another one. It's just a lever action. It would be non-restricted. Don't know much information about that. Number 10, this one is really confusing to me. I've had a hard time narrowing down what it was. I personally think it's some sort of 22 long rifle, maybe a bolt action or semi-auto. So it'd be 10 rounds, 10 round capacity. And I think it shoots 22 long rifle, which is this tiny little guy right here. But I'm probably wrong on that one. But yeah, who knows? Number 11, I'm pretty sure that this is a Savage model, maybe an Axis or something like that. It would be non-restricted, bolt action, mag capacity would be 5 rounds. Number 12, so this is similar to number 6, 14, and 15. Very, very similar models. So I think this would be some variant of the AR-180B, which would be a non-restricted. It would shoot 5.56 semi-auto. And again, this is one of the ones where it was designed to not get qualified as a restricted gun. The difference is here is the stock. So if you look at the stock on this one opposed to the stock on this one, that's because the AR-15 actually has the bolt that slides down the tube, and these ones are designed to be different so that this bolt operates different. You can see that there's no bolt on the other side of this thing. You have the charging handle. It just operates a little bit different. So it's similar to the Kodiak Defense WK-180. But just probably a different manufacturer. I'm pretty sure these ones are the Kodiak Defense ones. 13, just a 12 gauge shotgun. Don't know maker model, anything like that. It would be non-restricted there. 14,
highly dangerous to birds.
Highly dangerous to birds or grizzlies up if you're in the bush, because there is some 00 buck over here, which would be not bear deterrent, but it would be like a larger BB in there. Number 14 is this one's a Kodiak Defense Gen 1 WK-180, like I'd said before, with number 6. And then number 15, I think this is another AR-180B, just a different variant, just because the stock's different and whatnot. So that was basically what I was able to identify by lots of this, and it's just noticing patterns like with this bolt down here and patterns with that. And you can, if you zoom in more, you can faintly see it stamped. So that's why I kind of made the assessment on those. But I would definitely, if anyone's watching and knows more than me, definitely reach out to me, because I'm glad to kind of compile this information and get the ball rolling that way to do what I can help here. But those are kind of the updates from the table. You know, we talked about the body armor and the magazines last time and stuff like that, and I didn't. It's very difficult to find any information as far as press releases and what I was able to search.
So good info is I have Alex Cabana committed to next Tuesday, so he's going to come. He's a vet that knows his weapons very well. He is a what is his title again? Not command, but he's an engineer, combat engineer. There we go. I got there. And he's a combat engineer and he knows his stuff. So he's agreed to come on and talk as well. And we can say that we had two pretty credible tips. One tip was the patches were handed out by a gentleman. So how they got onto this vest, we still don't know. But what we can say is it does not appear that the RCMP themselves had it in their back pocket and added it. They were floating around.
And specifically about the vest, we talked about this last time. Body armor is regulated by the government in Alberta. So I think you have to register it, is what we came to the conclusion.
If it stopped a projectile.
Yes, if it's able to stop. But I mean, that doesn't mean that like these things could be empty. So the fact that they even have them on there is just to make everything else look scary and make these and vilify these men more, just by like. So again, and the reason why I brought this up is because this is what the scary cartridge that Trudeau banned all of the guns for, that most of them shoot. Yet this is a hunting rifle round, which has a lot more. There you go, like, which looks scarier, right? The legal guns can shoot this, but the illegal guns shoot this. So we're basing everything just on optics, and I think that's truly why we see these plate carriers, if that's what they actually are, in this picture, especially if those were just sitting next to the state safe and they slapped them on there. Because again, we're just looking at optics here. You know, there's a bunch of questions, even walkie-talkies. Why are they there? This looks like some paracord or something like that.
Well, I could even highlight to you that there's an evidence bag back there. There's two of them and they're open. They're not sealed.
Yeah,
there's lots of problems there.
And like, I don't even know what this is, but it's like everything that they could find that was anywhere close to the gun safe or whatever. They took it upon themselves to kind of put it in the picture just to be able to change the perception of the public against these men. You know, even the machete, there's nothing illegal about having that machete, you know.
For sure.
I got one in my camping kit, right? Like,
don't say that, you might have a cachet all of a sudden.
Yeah, and I know CSIS is listening, so now my garage is going to be raided to look for the damn machete. But that's what I mean, is like, it's all about the perception. So they're throwing anything that they could that looks moderately scary. Again, bear mace is on there. Not illegal to have. My sister goes hiking all the time in southern Alberta. She carries bear mace with her. So it's really ridiculous.
Now, there's a couple more things I do want to highlight while we have this photo up. I had people tell me that this is an old photo from Grand Prairie, etc. I heard that rumor so many times. No, I searched the archives. I did image searches. I have no record of this prior to when it was released. And then the second thing I want to highlight here is gun number 8 and the cartridges. We've received a tip that those are standard issued RCMP stuff. So I'm not saying it came from them, but the RCMP are allowed to have gun number 8 and those cartridges.
Yeah, I mean, at one point in time, number 8 would fully be legal to own and purchase. It would still just be non-restricted. So like, I'll zoom in a little bit more. You can't see from this side, but right here, actually, you can, I think. If it was capable of full auto, which I'm not sure if the RCMP's firearms are capable of that, there'd be another word here, because this, oh my God. This is the safety selector.
Leave it alone.
This is the safety selector right here. So you would be able to flip that to safe or semi-automatic. And then if it was capable of full auto, which would be, I think, to my knowledge, only the military would have access to it. So again, like, what we can see here isn't going to be indicative of a civilian owned rifle or something that would be issued to the RCMP. I'm not as knowledgeable on what they actually get, but there would be little telltale signs on what they might have access to as far as issued kit in comparison to what civilians would be able to legally purchase. And again, I doubt that they have magazine capacity, so these would be incredibly hard to get in Canada.
Civilians.
anything over 5 rounds because it has to be pinned. So either these were modified by the people who've had charges laid against them, or they're planted, right? So
Okay.
there's questions that need answered specifically around some of the legality of what is on the table and who owns it.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to highlight is we received tips, which we call rumors at this point because we can't corroborate them. But the tip was possibly gun number 8 came from a local source, not necessarily from a seizure. But that's a tip. We can't corroborate it, but we can say this picture, from all indications, is definitely not earlier. And I could not find a link. I could not find Grand Prairie. I could not find that at all. And we have busted the media on that before using old photos. This doesn't appear to be an old photo.
And
I
I should
have a little bit of insight on that one, if it helps. The photo that was used, it does show the headline of the Grand Prairie News. And then it shows this picture. The way it's set up, if you zoom right in on it, it does show the headline of the Coutts blockade underneath, but you have to zoom right in, and you can see that it looks like an old Grand Prairie thing, but it is actually, the headline is from Coutts.
Right. So
And that
Grand
is the
Prairie,
picture that circulated. I've had people bring it up
Sure.
to me before. What about this one? And I'm like, well, show me. And I'm like, well, see if you.
Well, not
scroll right
only
in,
that, then the
it is
fact checkers at the
not
media
far.
aren't really doing their job because everybody posted this exact same picture, global CTV. So it's like if they were wrong on that, and this is something that was propagated, then that opens them up for, I think, some type of litigation.
Well, and we've always kind of asked the question, like, where are the pictures of these things where they were found, right? Like, where are those in evidence? There's just this picture. I mean, even when the boys were questioned, this is the picture that they showed them, and they're talking about, this is what the media's released. The media's released this. Well, where's your evidence of this situation, right? This is.
Well, I'll say one last thing, and then I gotta go get my kids up. But if there's anybody watching, and if there's any gunnies in the chat, type the number and what you think it is, and I'll go through the chat again and see and do some research. So kind of crowdsource the fact checking here. So yeah, if you're rewatching this video, just type the number and what the model and stuff like that. Any information definitely helps. But I gotta go. You guys have a great rest of your morning, and I guess I'll be on next week to see what we can find and bring more evidence to light. So take care,
thank
guys.
you very much, Zach. It was appreciated. Take care, bud. And he'll drop off. There he goes. Wow. So we got an update there, Granny. So that's what happens in 1 week. We get more information. We keep sleuthing, and he's getting some crowdsourcing on the information, which is wonderful. Wonderful. And then Danielle's able to speak on stuff too. So Danielle, would you mind joining us again next Tuesday? We'll kind of do the same thing. We have a more of a gun expert coming as well. So that might be helpful.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, great. And over this next week, we'll try and get as much of this gun documentation that we have, the charges, etc., especially the charge of 1 weapon on 4 people. That's an interesting one. And I think maybe we might have enough to get Tracy's eyebrow to rise on this, because if there is only 1 weapon that they're talking about, but 4 charges right away, I think there's a question mark around that. So if over the next week as a team we'll work on getting this package of gun info collected, I think that'll be a nice start. Thank you for that. And that works for you, Danielle and Donald? We get a couple thumbs up. Go ahead, you're unmuted, Donald. Yeah, that's great. Perfect.
Am I good? Okay. Great. Look, I'd really like to see the information, the charge sheet against each one of these people. Surely we can obtain that somewhere. Or is that secret too?
That would be interesting if we can't get that. That should be public.
Yes, yes. Let's see if we can, let's work and see if we can get that. Listen, I wondered when we said we were going to do this show every day, is there enough information? My goodness. Every time we do this show and we talk to people, there's just things we never heard about, things that are incredible. I'm really interested in this situation where we have 2 crowns and the RCMP and the words misconduct
Gross.
used. My, gross misconduct.
Right.
Wow. Now, that's not only bad because of what they did, whatever they did, and who knows?
Whatever they're accused of. They have the
Whatever
right
they're
for trials
whatever
too, right?
they're accused of, we don't know. But you know, if they did it in that instance that they got caught in, what else did they do?
Do you know what, Donald? You bring up a good point, because if this prosecutor in any way, shape, or form is shown to be doing bad things here, so not unethical, basically his entire backlog of claims and cases will be reviewed.
But it's with the police too, and I'm not talking about his, a review of his entire backlog of cases. I'm talking about this Coutts Four thing. And if they got caught doing something that is gross misconduct together, two Crowns and the RCMP, well, what makes you think that they didn't plant evidence? What makes you think that they didn't deliberately lie in the information? What makes you think that they didn't rough up somebody? I mean, look, everybody I ever arrested for breaking into a house, if they didn't have a record before, they always got caught breaking into their first house.
First time. Always the unluckiest criminals.
Always. Okay, which means to say, yeah, they did 100 before and they just got caught now. If these people have been caught doing something that is gross misconduct, the police and the Crowns together, this whole thing could come down like a house of cards, because how can you go to a jury and say, well, yeah, the Crown and I got together and we decided to do this act of gross misconduct, but honest, everything I did before that was okay.
Right.
No.
And they should know, because they're the ones that argue against defendants all the time on this one. So
that's right.
Yeah,
Wow.
they're going to know.
Wow.
I wouldn't want to be him right now. But here's the thing. If he did something wrong, it's his fault. He should face it. So I have empathy, but not sympathy.
We have two people who are alleged to have done something grossly misconduct, and maybe the RCMP in there too.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So Granny, looks like we are doing some good work here, and Donald's not wrong. When he thought we're going to do the show, like he just said, what can we talk about? Well, there's going to be a lot. And if on July 25th they're freed, guess what? We'll be talking about the prosecution of the Crown. We'll be continuing this journey on that as well, because we want to make sure that justice is fully served, not just for our guys. So if our guys are freed for whatever, we want to make sure that the people who put them there are also addressed as well. So this could be going on for years, Don. So I hope you have lots of coffee.
Can you imagine? And look, I'm just going on a flight of fancy here, but please indulge me. If these four people are freed because somebody got together and faked something, and that resulted in that photograph and the press release and everything that happened, which was a catalyst for the Emergencies Act. Oh my goodness.
This is why I think they're pushing so hard right now, Don, because you're right. If that house of cards falls, we should be concerned. I am a very happy person. Let everybody know that. I'm a very happy person. No dark thoughts. I'm a happy person. If I disappear, just putting that out there, I'm a happy person. So Granny, this is starting to feel serious. It does sound like we got some things moving. We're going to be paying close attention on the 25th. We're going to drive the speed limit. We're going to make sure we have our signals on as we turn corners, because we don't need to be pulled over for any reason at this point for the next little bit, right?
Yeah, I think that way all the time. I abide by the rules everywhere. I always let people know where I'm going, tinfoil hat moment. But this is real. This is big. And I've always said to people, it's not what you think, it's bigger. And I've always said to people, everybody knows my personality. I'm a minimalist. Money is not my end all. If you see my personality change, there's a reason. And it's an SOS. I've always said that. So it's real. And there's four individual men that have the truth that is locked behind a remand door, and they're not allowed to share it. My question is, why? Right. 513 days. There's got to be a reason. And I think it's right in front of us right now.
Absolutely. And if something does happen with the Crown and they'd have to face some sort of punishment, may I suggest they start off with 513 days of sitting there and thinking about it before they even move. Maybe we should think about that. Okay. Well, Danielle, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful episode, and we're going to bring you back. We'll plan for again next Tuesday. We will highlight some of this gun stuff, and then continue with your evidence gathering and categorization. We're going to turn you into professional sleuth at some point. You might even become on salary for somebody.
That would
The
be
way it's going
excellent.
on.
Get paid for all of that.
Yeah, you're on your way. You're certainly on your way. Your passion and your desire is a good start to it, and the work you've done is a good testament to what you can do. So I'm excited about that. And Donald may have another apprentice here to turn into a sergeant or whatever you call it.
Superintendent, deputy chief.
Superintendent, not even
That's
grade
it.
attendant. You're superintendent.
That's right.
So look at that. We all may have some futures here that we didn't plan on, but when we follow the evidence and follow the story, it takes you somewhere. So thank you all very much for being here today. We're going to wrap up. So I'm going to quickly go through my list here. I got Donald, Danielle, then Granny, and we'll do the goodbyes. I think he's frozen.
Oh, there we go. Hey,
Telepathic.
Look,
Goodbye.
that's it. Look, I just have to say, I'm amazed by what we're uncovering each day here. And this is exciting. I've heard so much today that gives me optimism that Canadians can get out of this oppression that we're under by the media and the government working together to declare what's truth and what's not. And this gives me so much optimism because this we're going to carry this through, not just for this case, but for everything. And there are many good people out there working hard to discover the truth and to communicate it to our fellow citizens. And we're going to keep on doing that.
And here's one of those good people right now, Danielle. Thank you.
Well, I don't know how to follow up on that one. He's definitely right. It's going to take a lot of us. It's been a long go. I think the other family members can kind of attest. I see Jacqueline's on there. Good morning. It's been a very lonely ride up until especially when Granny got involved. These guys, like you said, nobody knows who these guys are. They're just kind of guys from Southern Alberta. They don't have a name, right? It wasn't like Tamara or any of these big names that, God bless them, they got in trouble and all that happened to them too, but they had people watching before. So right. It's been a very, very long, lonely, painful ride up until recently. It feels the families just have a lot more hope with everybody paying attention. I mean, what seems like nobody knows to you guys seems like, holy crap, even this is a lot more than we ever had before, and Granny's got a lot to do with that. We really needed that full-time 24/7 lady who was willing to give it all she got and get the attention out there, because otherwise it would have been impossible. So as much as it seems like nobody knows, I think the families and friends can attest that we're in a lot better place than we were a year ago, where all we really had sometimes was just comments on a Facebook post like, no, please believe us. But so we thoroughly appreciate everybody, and everybody's willing to click share on these. That goes a very, very, very long way for us. So please keep hitting share and trying to get the word out. The talking, the awareness is pinnacle right now. They need to know we're watching. It's the only way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Granny kind of has an update. They at least know that there's an article written about them, at least one of them.
Yes.
You want to kind of mention what happened there?
Yes, I shared it with Chris Carbert. It's I had heard Chris Lysick had received the information from Crystal, so I painstakingly.
And this is Donald's article we're talking about.
Yes, Donald's article. Yes, I assume everybody should be in here.
Yeah. I'm a host. I got to let the audience know what.
Yes, thank you. So he was thrilled with it. He enjoyed reading it. You got to remember, these guys live in an echo chamber. They're in a bubble, and they don't get the news. So when I shared Donald's article with him, his first response was he loved it. Then he says, does he know who I am? Does he know I'm a father? Like, they've been made out to be monsters. And Chris L says that all the time. He says, I'm not a monster. And so Donald's article really is helping them feel like they're being seen as people. And they are 4 lovely men. And I always say, this is a giant-sized puzzle. It starts with one piece, and I see 3 more pieces right here. And we're all coming together as this giant-sized puzzle. And every piece counts. Do not think you don't count. the person that hits the share button, the person that donates $10, we're all part of this puzzle, and it's coming together, and the picture's getting bigger and bigger right now. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for the 4 men.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for relaying the messages from them. It's great to hear those. It's great to hear those. And I think I've got the privilege, I might be able to speak to a couple of them in the near future. So we'll stay on top of that as well. And I'm very honored, Granny, that you said yes. You said yes to coming on the show. You said yes now 12 times to come on the show, and it'll be 13 tomorrow, and we'll keep going. So thank you very much. And then Danielle, you as well. You are a godsend. Okay. You were on a mission, whether you created it or not, or you were guided. So thank you for that. And thank you for finding your way here as well. I know the family loves it. I know Jacqueline and the rest love the fact that somebody is there keeping tabs, taking notes. So thank you, Danielle. And we're going to turn you into something, I think. And by the way, Danielle, who do you want to play you in the movie? Start thinking about that. But everyone, you have who's that?
Maybe Pina Culas. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Mila. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, Granny said Granny will do herself, so that's going to be in the contract. So she can be an actress. So go, Granny. But anyways, thank you all very much. We're trying to make light of situation from time to time, but this is a very serious subject, and I think we did some good work here today. So thank you all very much, and we'll talk to you all soon. Well, folks, especially you on Facebook, you guys are crushing it. It's growing fast. I'm watching the numbers just climb as we speak. So please share. Copy the link to someone else if they're not on Facebook. You get this out there, because our goal here is to get the information to you, and you're not going to find anywhere else, unfortunately. I kind of rather just be some dude having coffee with his friends like I was 3 weeks ago. That's what my morning show. I was hanging out with my friends talking about what's going on. But then this dropped onto our lap, and we're going to hold this, and we're going to take it all the way through to the end. So thank you all very much for being here. This is another good episode. Share. You know how I feel about you all. Love you all. God bless.